All right, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Lee Schwartz, and I'd like to welcome you to the third webinar in our 2023 veterinary series. This one's titled Veterinary Staffing Stats, Trends, and Tips. That's right, the results of our much-awaited second annual Vet Salary and Benefit Survey. So our presenters have a lot of information to get through today, so I don't want to take up too much time, but before we get started, I just want to take a second and say a few words about SVA and our history working with veterinarians. Like many of you, we got to where we are by being independent. And our vision moving forward is to remain that way and continue serving the same clients we have since 1974. And a huge part of that client base over these last now just about 50 years has been within our healthcare practice, which includes dental, medical, and of course, vet practices. Our mindset is that when you're a practice owner or shareholder, you have to work with someone who's more than just an accountant or tax preparer. You need someone who's a true advisor working collaboratively with you. This webinar, this survey, and other things like it are just some small ways in which we do that. Now, just a quick note about the data we're about to share. The more practices that participate, the better the survey data. So only those practices are going to receive the full results. If you didn't participate, well, number one, participate next year. But if you didn't participate, reach out to me directly. If you'd like to receive the full results, we can talk about ways to get those to you. But if not, you can still go to our website and download the executive summary, which has more limited data. As far as this webinar goes, please send in any questions you may have as we go, but we're going to try to save those till the end. And of course, we have two of the most experienced people in our healthcare practice to go through everything with you today. First off, we have Andy Slinger, a principal who really has led our vet practice now for several years. And we have Nate Drykosen, a senior manager in our vet practice who works with practice owners and practice managers on efficiency and profitability strategies. So like I said, a ton of information to cover. Hopefully I went quick, you guys, but Andy, I'm going to let you dive in.
All right. Thank you, Lee. And thank you to everyone joining us today. It is great to see so many familiar names. I wish we could see your faces. And, to those of you that we haven't had a chance to meet, we would love to have a conversation, not necessarily that we're going to end up working with all of you, but even if it's just in a social setting, like a WVMA event, where we just get to, put a face to a name and find out both the successes and the struggles that you're having in your practice right now. This is a very highly anticipated result and webinar. And, it's quite frankly humbling to see just the overwhelming response and participation today. So in the 26 minutes that we have, there's no way we can take a very deep dive into the data. But, our data guru, Nate, will take you as deep as he can in the time we have available. And then hopefully we are here to continue the conversation with you at some point in the future, whether you are a client or not. So where are we going today? I will start us off with a very high level analysis of where I think things are. Hopefully both at the beginning and the end, give you some provocative comments to really get you thinking with the goal of take one thing away from today that maybe you can apply to your practice. I think that would be a very successful presentation for us. As I said, Nate will take us into the survey, and then I'll leave you with some parting thoughts before I turn it back over to Lee to wrap us up. Okay, so just to get us started, what are we seeing as we talk to clients, as we attend events, as we really try to have a pulse on what's going on? So the first comment, attracting and retaining talent, please don't groan. You're probably like, well, duh, tell me something I don't know. But what we always hear is, first question we get is, are there people struggling too? And I think when you attend something like this, you want to know that, yeah, it's not just me. And it doesn't matter right now if I'm rural, urban, or somewhere in between. Everybody is struggling both to bring people in the door and to keep them from going out and seeking new employment. It's a revolving door right now everywhere you go. Burnout. I used to be a little bit skeptical on that word years ago. I thought it was a bit of an overused term. I can tell you that, especially in the veterinary world right now, it's real. And it doesn't matter if you are an owner, associate, practice manager, or any other position in between, it's real. In our healthcare practice, we have colleagues that work with mental health professionals in their practices, and I can tell you that they are as busy, busting at the seams, just like you are, and they also, like many of you, have record revenue. So it's real. Life is hard sometimes. People are struggling right now, okay? Outsourcing administrative function. I want you to know right off the bat, this is not a self-serving comment, okay? This can involve payroll. We don't do payroll at SVA, but practices are looking for a payroll partner to work with because payroll is messy, okay, and time consuming. HR, you didn't go to school to be a human resources expert or professional, and you are dealing with HR in more ways than you ever envisioned. So you're looking for a partner. Legal, you're obviously not supposed to be practicing law, but you're finding all types of legalese issues in your practice that you need help with. And yes, bookkeeping, okay? Bookkeepers are hard to find, they're hard to keep, they're expensive. Some of you as owners are doing your own. You're like, okay, I need to reallocate very precious resources in my practice, or I need to free up my time for other reasons listed on this screen. And you're looking for someone to help you with that. A benefit offerings, nothing new. You're looking for a way to differentiate yourself, looking to be unique, looking to make your practice the practice of choice for your staff and for attracting new staff. And also you're trying to find who to work with. Like I need to offer health insurance. Who knows? Who's an expert in health insurance? I need to offer an employer-sponsored retirement plan. Who knows how to help me with this? So it's not just increasing, but it's also finding the partner. And last but not least, we have encouraged you to make sure your fees are in the right place because many of you, your fees are low to begin with. And now you've had record inflation. You've never paid more for your people. You've never paid more for your lab, your supplies, your vaccines, your medicines. You're just trying to keep up. And now we're hearing that, clients are like, whoa, I'm paying more for everything. And you're starting to get a little bit of pushback. You're starting to get a little bit of delayed treatment. It's real. It's happening. Okay, so that's just my high level of where I see the state of veterinary medicine today. Getting right to the survey, which is why you're here today. Very high level. What we love, you'll see the numbers, but we have respondents from all over the state of Wisconsin, rural, urban, everywhere in between. We asked you for the low and the high of your wage increase. Okay. And 3 to 7, not surprising. We've seen that all year long. As far as those of you that have increased your fees, very happy to see 63% at least one time, 28% at least two. As I was doing the math, I'm thinking hopefully the difference means you did 3 or more as opposed to some of you not increasing your fees. And when you see that 20% could be an outlier, probably somebody that their fees were low to begin with and you had to get them up. And then now you had to account for all the inflation you're seeing. Average fee increase between 7 and 8%. Again, that's what we're hearing. Going to pass right by the loyalty program because I don't think that's applicable right now. Again, very little exception on the regions. Doesn't matter where you are in the state, doesn't matter how close you are to a big metropolitan area. Very consistent data we're seeing. And we're going to talk more about what a retention bonus is, but we are a little surprised to see that only 5.4 offer a retention bonus. I think we're probably all calling it something else, spot bonus, Christmas bonus, extra effort bonus. But I think many of you are offering some type of bonus to keep your employees engaged and in your practice. And something you probably would not have even heard of 5 years ago, sign-on bonuses at all levels, whether it's a certified tech, an assistant, a practice manager, an associate DVM, you're having to do whatever you have to do to attract new talent into your practice. Okay, let's get to the data. But before we do, we love to know who we're presenting to here live. Very easy, easiest question you'll get all day. Did you participate in the survey, yes or no? Drum roll. See what we got. Oh, look at this. We have, of those of you joining us live, we have a 50-50 mix. So my takeaway is this. You're going to see the practices that participated. Our goal next year is to get up over 100 respondents. So if you didn't participate, weren't invited to participate, or did, no matter where you are, participate again, invite a colleague in a neighboring vet practice to participate. If you didn't, please do. Let's make this data as good as we can, and let's build on this into the future so it's a tool you can use. All right, without further ado, I want to introduce our data guru, Nate, who's really going to take you into the data.
Thanks, Andy. So this is just a map that kind of gives a sense of the scale of this survey and kind of the distribution of practices that provided results to us. So this grew quite a bit this year. We like to see that trend and hope it continues into the future. So a little bit about some of the dynamics behind these practices. So we've got this broken out by practice size, and it kind of breaks out as you might expect. Most common ranges were 6 to 10, 11 to 15. Once you get above that, there's just really fewer and fewer practices, geographically. So that was not surprising to us. The most common response was 12 employees. And the most common response for a number of DVMs converted to full-time equivalents was 2.5. So we'll see here in a second that this kind of tends to correlate with revenue, but not quite exactly. As we look at practice dynamics in terms of average revenue, again, a fairly nice even distribution. But if you compare this to some of the employee sizes, you'll see that these areas don't exactly quite line up. And more employees, more DVMs doesn't always project the highest revenue. And so in fact, we're seeing some clinics with 5 or fewer employees, and especially at the 6 to 10 level, really punching above their weight in terms of revenue that they generate. And really, that's not that crazy of a phenomenon. It's a lot of these clinics have kind of a ceiling because of larger administrative costs and losing some synergies with utilization as you kind of wrestle with becoming a bigger organization. In terms of the clinic type, far and away, brick and mortar clinics are the most common, but we are starting to see the fully mobile model becoming more and more prevalent. And in this case, the one other response we had was a telemedicine provider. We see the fully mobile model increasing a lot for the large animal sphere, so losing some of that brick and mortar presence. And there seems to be less and less of the hybrid models in the market where some of these clinics are starting to choose one model or the other, just brick and mortar or just mobile, as they move forward and decide how they want to service their clients. In terms of specialty, some bovine, some equine, a fair number of mixed, some large animal generalists, and then by far the largest category maybe to be expected as small animal. So what you can see here is that the mix percentage here doesn't equal the hybrid model. So that would indicate that some of these practices have chosen to eliminate the farm calls or travel model that would be associated with a large animal practice and focus instead on brick and mortar and less farm calls. So a little bit now about the ranges that we kind of grouped our categories here. So this is kind of an overview of how it was structured for those that did not participate. We've got full-time equivalents in the 0 to 3 years range experience, 4 to 9 years, and then 10 or more years. The receptionist and client service position, we saw some change from last year, a little bit of an increase, but pretty much in line with what we're seeing in the industry, where it's right around 6% or so across the board. One comment about the 0 to 3 years, there's this maximum of 35. And looking at some of the data and how this particular respondent responded to the rest of the questions, it would seem as though this receptionist client service person also had multiple roles across the organization, but they felt they were best categorized in this role. So probably a little bit of diversity in what these folks are actually asked of in their day-to-day jobs, causing a little bit of variability there. But it really didn't affect the average much. I think it moved at less than 50 cents if you were to throw that out. So all in all, a lot better data, more consistent data this year to pull from. Bookkeepers, as Andy mentioned, bookkeepers are hard to find and hard to keep. So some of these salary ranges might surprise you. But really, this is the area where we're seeing less and less folks providing a strictly bookkeeping role and seeing this role merged in with other positions such as practice manager, client service / receptionist, or plenty of owners we see still doing their books as well. So it is really amazing as we bring clients and chat with more folks at some of the events we attend, how many of them spend inordinate amounts of time on their financial data, just trying to keep up and keep things as clean as they can. The manager administration role is another one that not all clinics have, and sometimes they call it multiple things and merge it in with other roles. But all in all, you can see across the experience levels a nice linear trend in terms of experience level. We'll say that you look at the ranges here from the minimum to the maximum, and maybe the biggest reason for the variability is what exactly these folks are being asked to do. Some of them are doing a lot more on the HR side of things, a lot more on the financial side of things, sometimes also in scheduling. And so this is kind of a role that pulls in a lot of different multifaceted aspects of a veterinary practice, and as expected, has a fair bit of variability. Kennel assistants are another position that not all practices have, but all in all, we saw a decent increase in wages compared to last year in this role, but not typically a long tenured position, something often temporary or for just a few years, or as folks looking to move into other roles in the veterinary industry. So for certified vet techs, this year was the first year of our survey where we tried to help folks delineate between assistants doing some tech roles or some tech duties versus truly credentialed vet techs. And we were hoping this would kind of eliminate some of the variability we were seeing in terms of wage range across those salary buckets in terms of tenure. You can still see a fairly decent range for the certified folks, but all in all, right around $22 an hour, with 32, anywhere from 32 to 30-ish being the kind of the upper end for the folks that we see in the marketplace. So the non-certified vet techs, so again, this would be characterized as assistants doing some of the kind of lower level technician role items. So you can see there's definitely a difference in wages and wage ranges. So it was good to see that helping carve this out did give us what seems to be a little bit better data and capture some of those folks that are really high performing assistants and helping out with some really crucial functions at the clinic, but aren't going to command the same pay that someone with a credentialed license might. On to generally veterinary assistants. So again, fair bit of variability here. I think there's probably some overlap with the uncredentialed technicians section of this, but all in all, a pretty linear progression in terms of averages, minimums, and maximums. The one kind of unusual point being the $26 per hour in the 4 to 9 year range. But again, this is all kind of relative. It doesn't strike us as completely out of the ordinary. And those folks might be doing a little bit more of an expanded role than what might be expected of other veterinary assistants in the industry. So some non-owner veterinarians. This was a tough one, right? Because it seems like there's a lot of variability in how folks compensate their DVMs. But in asking everyone to convert compensation to hourly wages, what you're seeing is a nice linear progression in terms of tenure and also on the minimums and maximums. This is up quite a bit from last year as well. Okay, so time for our second poll question. So based on what you've learned so far, where do you think your wages or salaries compare with the market? Lower than the market? You feel like you're pretty aligned with the market, or maybe you're a little bit above the market? All right. So great to see that folks feel like their wages are mostly aligned with the market, a couple below, a couple higher than market. So that is great. Last year is the first year that we really did a robust survey like this to help you all see kind of how you line up with your peers. And that is great to see that the folks that participated in that had access to that were able to kind of benchmark that with themselves and make adjustments if needed. So another component of any benefits package is whatever benefit plans might be offered for the clinic. So we have this gamut of common items that we're starting to see across the marketplace. Some of the very common ones like health insurance, dental, short-term disability, long-term life, some sort of flex spending account, HSAs, uniforms, shoe allowances, staff discounts for veterinary services, educational assistance programs, and kind of a broad other category. And we saw a lot of variety in the other category, and it was kind of a lot to get into for this presentation. But what surprised us is obviously the prevalence of health insurance. It's becoming, a lot of the insurances are becoming an expectation in the marketplace today with employees. So that is good to see that veterinary clinics are starting to maybe address that issue and add that to their talent pool as they look to bring folks on board. And another item worth highlighting is this educational assistance programs. So we were a little surprised that this came back as almost 55% of practices offering this. And I think many folks read this question and think, I have this informal program where I help support my employees' education. I pay for CE and those sorts of things. And what this is actually referring to is a formal program that's covered under Section 127 of the IRS code. And that is something that if you've not had a formal policy in place, you should definitely talk about it with your advisor before year end. It can be put in place before year end, retroactive to the beginning of the year. And it's one of those rare items that truly is a win-win for the employer and the employees. So if it's not something you've looked at, definitely worth exploring and talking with your advisor about. So then beyond some of these benefit offerings on this page, we've got a different section for retirement and profit sharing plans. So it's totally possible that some of these items are not mutually exclusive. So if you do some quick math, you'll see that these percentages don't add to 100%. But just know that the profit sharing and cash balance plan are kind of add-ons to the 401k offering. So that's something as veterinarians are starting to experience more and more and more profit and looking for tax efficient ways to give back to their team. Retirement plans, more robust retirement plans are certainly great avenues to do that. And they also, as I mentioned, help you manage taxable income for a year. This one kind of surprised us a little bit. So we looked at how many non-owner DVMs are paid a percentage of hands-on production. And, this was tough because there was some really conflicting answers in the survey. Depending on how you read the data, of the practices that we could definitely determine have a current non-owner DVM, this number might be as high as 66%. But in total, it seems like globally, right around this 17% or so are looking at some sort of a production threshold. So as possibly as high as 66% incorporate some part of production into the compensation for their DVMs for those that clearly have some currently. Looking at sign-on bonuses, roughly 20% offer sign-on bonuses, and we've got it broken out by typical position offerings on this slide as well. So definitely interesting to see the differences in roles, but they make sense based on the positions being offered. Looking at wage increases, really big range here. And again, I think this is folks addressing the market issues with retaining talent. The most common value given for the low increase was 3%. The most common for the high increase was 5%. But as you can see from the results, we had a spread of much higher and fairly lower as well to kind of help average those out. As Andy mentioned, employee retention bonus program, just over 5% of practices said they offer one of these. But really, we're thinking that there's many practices that offer these that just don't call it a retention bonus. This could be any kind of bonus, spot bonus, Christmas bonus, holiday bonus, year-end bonus, whatever you want to call it, to help you recognize your employees' efforts for the year as kind of a token of, hey, we really appreciate your effort. We had a pretty good year, and I'd like to share some of that with you. Thank you so much for all you do. So I think hopefully next year, folks will kind of view the retention bonus program as kind of a little bit more all-encompassing model than a formal retention bonus program just for continuing to be an employee. The loyalty program is one that is not common. Although that said, just this August, my personal veterinarian implemented a loyalty plan. So we'll see how this trends into the future. It seems like this is something that had a lot of momentum before the pandemic. Folks got busy. It kind of got put on the back burner. And we'll see if this picks up again going into the future. Looking at fee increases, a lot of clinics did one-time increase, plenty did 2 or more. Surprisingly, amount did none. If you have not, we certainly recommend it. The most common response of looking at fee increases averaged across the board was right around 10% globally of all the practices participating. So with that, I'm going to throw it back to Andy for some tips and next steps.
Thanks, Nate. Okay, in a few minutes we have left, I think there's some clear things that I want to communicate to you. Number one, if you really look at some of the data we got back, it's clear that some of you really had to increase wages to attract new people in that 0 to 3 category. And in many cases, now we have employees in the 0 to 3 category making as much or more as more tenured people. That's going to create a revolving door, right? As soon as we find out, they're going to be like, well, I can go make more elsewhere because we didn't adjust the pay scale at this practice. So make sure you adjust your more tenured people for what you're having to pay the new people, okay? Number 2, said this for years. A lot of employees just look at hourly wage, their W-2. Make sure you let them know everything you pay on their behalf, all your benefits. What's the dollar amount behind those benefits? The soft things, you're bringing in lunch, you're closing down the office for a half day every so often to do a team building event. Whatever it is that's a benefit, show them how much you care, show them the full cost of that to you as the employer. Third one, provide resources for relief. What does that mean? This ties back to burnout, okay, mental health. What does relief mean to your people? EAP can mean educational assistance program. Some practices also offer an employee assistance program that, again, gives your people resources on the mental health, personal crisis side, something to consider. The WVMA has partners they work with, that can help you and your staff out as well. As I mentioned, consider those team building events, shutting down the office spontaneously on a Thursday afternoon, giving everybody $200 and, hey, let's go Christmas shopping. Whatever it is to you in your area, what's going to be meaningful, just give them that day off, that half day to recuperate a little bit. Consider your culture, okay? Are you the employer of choice in the area? Okay, walk in the shoes of your people. What do they experience? Is there a way to make that experience even better for them? And, last but not least, I know this flies in the face of what I said at the beginning, that we're starting to see some patient fee sensitivity. Way to think about it. So if you get your fees in the right place, that allows you to take care of your people. That's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it that I'm going to focus on in 2024 is maybe fees are in the right place and you really can't go any higher at this point. Maybe it's time to look at, what are you giving away for free to your clients in a given year? What are you discounting? And if we even cut those discounts in half, or what we're giving away for free in half, what significant difference can that make in your practice? And what can you then offer more to your people? So it's something to think about. What are you giving away for free? What are you discounting? Okay, with that, I think it's time to do one final poll question. All right, so many things you could tackle tomorrow. What are you going to look at first? You're going to look at your fees. You're going to look at wages and salaries. You're going to look at some type of bonus program, regardless what you call it. You're going to look at your benefit package, or quite frankly, I just got to keep looking at it all. I might be most curious in this result. All right, what do we have? Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's a challenge, right? It's almost like throwing darts. But all the above by far, 50% of the respondents. And then interestingly, most of you participating today say my wages and salaries are good. So I really need to look at, other things outside of that. So, all right, Lee, I will turn it over to you to wrap us up.
Great. Andy and Nate, ton of information. And I know you guys didn't even get to a lot of different things in the survey too. Great job. This is such a huge benefit to not just our clients, but to the whole veterinary community. I love the fact that we do this. We get great feedback. So thank you guys for what you do. A couple of questions that came in. I know we're a couple minutes over. Andy, you promised me we wouldn't be, but you'll make it up to me. So one question is, and you covered this a little bit, but somebody asks, can you define what you mean by employee retention bonus?
Up to you. I can take it that, Andy, if you want.
Go ahead, Nate.
So we would define employee retention bonus as any type of bonus that really is not part of a contract, not part of an employment agreement, kind of a goodwill bonus to recognize your employee efforts / maybe give back for having a really good year. That can come in many forms, like we said.
So and of itself, that one thing isn't going to necessarily make the difference in keeping an employee. But again, you look at it as the aggregate, the holistic of what you're providing. All of a sudden, it's like, wow, they care. We're busy. We're busting at the seams. We can't take new patients. It's just another little way of sharing the profits with your people and showing how much you appreciate them.
Guys, we had a very specific question come in about like a geographic piece. I guess I just want to make sure everybody understands how we view this data. So this data we keep it very, very confidential. So the information that we'll share here is only information that can be broad enough where you could never identify individual practice or any practice-specific data. I probably should have said that up front, but we've been around for 50 years, and it's important that we keep all this information confidential. So those of you who are not participating for that reason, please participate. Know that that's something we take very seriously. And then I guess the only other thing I'll put out there, we had a couple of other comments come in, which we'll take in, but they were just comments about maybe other things we can include in future surveys. So I would just say to all of you listening in, if there's other data points that you want us to include, let us know. This is our second annual. We've made a couple changes from some suggestions last year, but this is going to be a work in progress, and we want it to be valuable to you and to the whole veterinary community. So I don't know, Andy, Nate, any other parting words, any other major takeaways you haven't covered that you want to do before we go?
No, I think my standing comment, it's a very challenging time to be a business owner right now. And so we're here. We just want to hear what's going on. We want to be a sounding board for you. So thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, so as we wrap up, I just want to point everyone to sva.com/vetseries. You can sign up for other webinars, and you can also find news and information that may affect you and your practice. Our next and final webinar is on December 12th, and the topic is Gear Up for Stress-Free Year-End Tax Planning. Good time to do it. And just a reminder, if you participated in this survey, you should have already received the full results. It's a 29-page document. If you didn't and you want the full thing, please reach out to me and we can discuss how to get that to you. If not, a briefer version is available for download on our website. Just again, want to thank you all for being here today and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Bye-bye.